when you were 2 or 3 years old, your dad taught you how to use the remote control on your television, and you came over to our house, you thought it would work the same, and you messed up our whole system. How's that for a family story?
That works.
Need a little prompting.
Okay. Well, the first prompt I came up with was, are there any stories about me that you'd like to share? Which Grandpa's already shared one.
Did, yeah.
Yeah. So we have like a lot of time left to share. So
Oh, okay.
don't feel free to take your time.
Well, I remember one time in your backyard, an opportunity, your dad was pitching a wiffle ball to you, and you were trying to bat right-handed, and you weren't doing very well, and I turned you around to the left side, and you seemed to do a little better. And he didn't particularly care for having a daughter who might bat left-handed.
Oh, yeah, Keeley stories, particularly when we saw you more in your younger years. We could always go to a playground.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was never enough playground time.
Yeah. The Dragon Park.
The Dragon Park, yeah.
I remember Jenna was born angry, and she seemed to be angry a lot of the times. Her mother had her sitting in that chair, and I was next to her with a red sweatshirt on with a North Coast Indian design, and she looked at me and just screamed. That was my introduction to Jenna. But she mellowed over the years. And now she's just a sweet, wonderful young lady. Holly was always very inquisitive about how things worked. My bookcase is up there with the sliding doors, you know.
Yeah.
She would stand there for 15, 20 minutes and open and close doors, open and close doors. And I'd sit right there to make sure one of them didn't drop on her hand.
And we had a loose rung on a chair that would spin. She loved to spin the rung on the chair.
Yeah.
Ah, what a kid.
Are there any? So the next level up is, are there any stories about my dad from when he was a kid that you'd like to share?
Oh, starting early. He was probably one of the sweetest, pleasantest little 3 or 4 year old you ever saw. But something happened when he was about 7. Sports, I think. He turned into a type A personality.
Yeah.
He wanted more attention from his mother than his sisters was getting. And one time he was practicing on a bicycle out in the corner, and
Oh,
his
this
sister,
might be an embarrassing story.
his sister Carrie was nearby, and he fell off the bicycle. He was laying on the street, and I heard the crash, and about 4 steps I was out there, and I heard him stop crying long and just say, "Carrie, go get Mom." And I said, "Get up off the street," and he did. The crash was over.
Yeah.
Particular anything about others, his siblings, or just
Anything, anyone, just stories in general.
Well, I remember St. Louis was in the World Series when Ken was in the 1st grade, and I had him memorize the starting lineup of the Cardinals, and he recited it as a show and tell in class, and his teacher was from St. Louis. But a few years later, his grandmother corrupted him into being a Dodger fan, and it goes on still today.
Although the Cardinals did win the World Series this year, so
Yep.
that's a good.
do you know if he was cheering for Texas?
I have no
Just because
idea.
he's South?
I have no idea.
No. Oh.
Embarrassing stories are fine at any level. If you have embarrassing stories about me, no big deal. I share embarrassing stories about myself on a regular basis, so.
I'll let you take care of those yourself. Yeah.
Is there any embarrassing stories that you guys have about each other that you'd like to share?
Doesn't come quickly.
We forget those things.
Yeah. Something that's happening in recent years, you know, because we've been married 50 plus years, in some time in engaging with other people, I almost think of us as a unit, one being. and buying tickets. I think sometimes we only need one. Odd, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
We agree on so many things, it's incredible.
There's something I should have asked you about. I should have asked you about what stands out to you about your wedding day in particular.
Oh, I had terrible allergic reaction that day, and looked like I was crying all the time because my eyes were all puffy. But it was a happy day,
I
honest.
don't remember her that way. Well, we have a tradition that when you were making your getaway from the church, the bride and the groom, that all of their friends would follow in cars and toot their horns and make a big scene. And I really didn't want that kind of a getaway, and so I picked out one street on the South Hill of Spokane that was very narrow, and with cars parked along the side, there was only one lane. And so I left my car up there on that street, and I had my best man drive us up there when all these people were honking and tooting behind us. And he stopped in the street. We jumped out and got in our car and drove off, and they couldn't get around us, and we made a clean getaway. That was the end of the parade.
Right. Do you have any? I'm trying to think of other questions. Do you have any stories that are like big events in your life that strongly affected how you view the world now?
For me, it was, marrying young at 19, having children, and then going back to school and going to college after the youngest one went into first grade, then I went to college. And it was during the Vietnam War era, so it was an awakening and on so many levels that was a big event for me.
Okay.
I'm kind of worried about how she'd get home sometimes because of all the disruptions down on campus. But she was on a lower part of the campus, so she could get around it. But I worked right downtown, and when we heard they were going to have that huge march from the university through downtown, why, I went up on a second floor of a park garage and looked down the street, and I'll never forget, it was just in utter awe to see thousands of people marching against that terrible war.
How did you guys usually get to work?
By bus earlier, when I was going to college and working in downtown Seattle, primarily by bus. And then we moved from Seattle area, Shoreline, out to Bellevue, and again, the bus was my main mode to get to downtown Seattle.
Is that where you live now, when you moved to here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then when I started working in Kirkland, then buses were really not convenient, and then I started driving.
Seemed like after I retired, though, I'd come and get you on occasions, and we could use the HOV lanes to get home.
Yeah, particularly if I was working extra late.
Yeah, I took a bus sometimes from North Seattle, too, into work. And during snowstorms, it was quite an adventure.
When did you guys retire?
It's been about 8 years ago for me.
Was I about 57 or 58 when I retired?
Yeah.
So that would have been,
Almost 20 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was a change in our lifestyle.
It was
I
easy.
continued working. He was retired and even learned to cook.
He was either retire or move to Los Angeles, and I decided to retire.
Okay. Let me pause this.